hell are you, Luke?
Pretty good.
You all moved in? Are you all, just so we're recording. This just is a free form, fluid thing. You good with that?
I think it's always fluid, so I'm ready to go.
There you go. Just checking.
Just
I've learned that I apparently have a habit of taking people off guard.
well, it's good to set that expectation, but we are in 2020, and when you get invited to a podcast and your webcam's on, make sure that you got clothes on. Make sure that you're censored.
At least from the waist down. I mean, waist up.
Down. Yeah, you run the risk of your webcam dropping though. There's always that odd chance that something falls, something crumbles, there's a fire and you need to stand up.
Or wait, the best is what you're using your laptop and you put the thing down a little bit because you're doing something you don't want anybody to see, but what you don't realize is the camera is like right on your like boobs or your belly button or something, and you have no clue because you thought you were like just shutting it down.
There's like 100 ways to do it, but it's like these conversations, this is the new business meeting, right? So I don't think it's replacing it. Like, no. I think there will always be a time and a place when you can see enough value to go from where you're located to where someone else is located so that you can sit in the flesh. I think there'll always be value for that. But if you're sitting here camera to camera, then you should be caring about other things like, you know, you can still look presentable. Your hair looks top notch, by the way, whatever you got done, you were ready for today. But having your hair ready, having a watch on, looking presentable, looking clean, having a good webcam image, having a good sound in your microphone headset. I think it's all important because people don't see what kind of pants I'm wearing. So I got to make up for it otherwise.
Well, you've got quite the setup there. You were showing me pictures because you just moved, right, last week. So we had like I had quite the kerfuffle last week. My internet crapped out halfway through one of these sessions. My camera wasn't working properly. You had a power outage.
Yeah, it's a safety hazard over here with the amount of extension cords. If someone can solve the issue with extension cords, I'd be pretty excited about that. Not everything is Bluetoothable yet.
And plus, the more you Bluetooth, the more there's connectivity issues. So, for example, I'm wired into my sound because if I try and Bluetooth my sound, it craps out my video.
Yeah.
So something has to be hardwired. And then I have to plug in my phone or I lose my battery. But my phone is on a quick charger and my ring light is on a slow charger. They're all in all these different plugs. I love it.
And I just talked about this recently. It's like, it's such a good time to be doing business. It's such a good time to be an entrepreneur, to be a creative person. Like assuming, this is a big assumption, but assuming we have our health, assuming we have the ability to put food on the table, assuming our basic needs and health and safety and sanity are taken care of, it's an unbelievable time to rethink what we're doing and how we're helping people. And I'd imagine, like, I'm talking to a serial director of marketing. I would imagine you see this too, right?
Yeah, and you know, one of the things I said from the get-go, I mean, I have I wear a lot of hats. Aside from my marketing hat, I have a whole health and wellness side to my world that I've been involved in. And that went completely upside down when, I apologize for the motorcycles on the outside of my house with a window that's open literally an inch. There's no getting away from it. So wearing that sort of health and fitness hat when with COVID and everything shut down, that side of my world went away, and it's really hard, but I'm blessed in that, you know, I work for another organization that promotes health and wellness, which is for some people Weight Watchers, WW. So I'm a wellness coach, and I've been involved with them for years, and it was amazing to see a company that is so steeped in history, but sort of old school history. I mean, they would meet in church basements. That's how it all started. It was all about community and togetherness. And suddenly they had to take this age-old institution and put it all online. And they did it in a week. And within a week, all around the world, we were all trained on how to deliver. Like, I felt so bad for their marketing people. I could tell they were scrambling to change what we're talking about, how we're delivering it, all, you know, the background, how to deal with people freaking out and scared and not knowing how to use the technology. And it just kind of made me stop and think of, yes, what we all do is very important. Whether we're helping software companies, hardware companies, businesses, you know, startup companies, but we're still people first. And you know, if I have a chance where I can make somebody just feel a little bit better, whether it's because I help them in their job or I help them just learn a new breathing strategy, I feel like I'm doing something good. If I can combine all my worlds, even better. That's my nirvana. So I always try and balance a little bit of one with a little bit of the other wherever possible.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's like the we're human message is particularly important now more than ever before. And I have a feeling that we're not going to figure it out for a while. And it's actually going to get worse before it gets better, because we have all this new tech, we have all these new tools, we have all this new automation, we have chat bots. Just because you have the tech to do automated chat doesn't mean you should. You know, just
Right.
because you can automate something doesn't mean you should. Just because you can use email templates and copy paste and send the same damn thing to 75 new connections on linkedin.com doesn't mean you should. And I feel that some people might look at it and say, oh, if I send 1,000, I get 1 conversion. Well, try spending a little bit more effort. Maybe you send 100 and not 1,000. And maybe you get 10 conversions, and lo and behold, because you're just being personable, you're being human. And like, I think people are really, really good at seeing genuine behavior versus not, like, inherently. So I hope in the long run that the human behavior always wins. But holy smokes, you go to sales script training and they're like, you need to say it like this.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful. It's awful. I was reading a poll, and now I'm going to get it totally wrong, but the question was, should you write the way you speak, or should you write the way your company speaks or your customer speaks? And it caught, you know, it was a tough question to answer, because yes, I want to write the way I speak, but if it all goes back to, you know, the age-old question: what social media platform should I be on? You know, that I'll use that as sort of our baseline question, because I get that all the time.
Right.
What should I be on? I don't know. Where are your customers?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. So when I use that approach to say, how should I write? I can write casually, but if I'm talking, let's say, to lawyers and engineers, they're not going to want to hear casual vernacular. They're going to want to hear really precise, what I call, you know, the dollar words, you know, 3 syllables, you know, complex, a little bit gobbledygook. That's what they're used to. So that's how you have to speak to them. But if you're going to be talking to somebody who's maybe a marketing person, or maybe an office admin, or somebody who's tasked with researching software, for example, and knows nothing about it, but just knows that they have to start doing some research, well, then you're going to be talking to them, because you know that's who's got their first eyeballs on you. Which is a great segue to how you help people, because you're all about finding that first customer. And that's a very different approach from what I've typically seen. So tell me, like, how does that work, and what kind of aha moments do you see? Because you must see them all the time. I love to me, the biggest is when I get that aha moment. When you can see that something's going on and they're like connecting all the dots and they're like, oh, I finally got it. How does that feel for you, and what does it mean when you ask those questions?
Yeah, so I started a brand, which is an extension of my personal brand called First Customer Club. I'm not trying to overly plug myself, but it's who I am. So that's why it's a good fit here. And essentially, I looked at my experiences, which were all a product of our experiences. And it's like, okay, well, what have I done a freaking large number of times? And a lot of my stuff has been working with a lot of technical business people that are great at building amazing shit, which I look at and I spend 6 months just understanding how they did it in the first place. And a lot of these good solutions, they need marketers and salespeople and brand people and PR people. But in a startup in the early stage, you don't have the luxury of any of that. You just have yourself and your mouth and your fingers and your keyboard. And I've always thought that with all of these amazing technologies, like the hardest thing you need to do is get started. And to me, get started means you find somebody out there that what you're doing resonates enough that they're going to actively use it and or pay for it, ideally. And I see a lot of companies take too long to get to that point, wasting too much time. I see a lot of companies never get to that point. I see a lot of companies find a way to get the first customer, but then can't get the second, third, fourth one. So I like to talk a lot about how to find the first customer, build the first product, and get startup traction. And I don't think it gets easy once you do that, but once you figure out that you have something that somebody wants and you figure out how to get it to them, to me, it's all about the art of the start, and it's the science part of it. So that's why I love hanging out with marketers, because it's like a lot of the same stuff I think applies. I could take a lot of wisdom from a director of marketing to understand how to find the first customer. But then there's just all this other stuff. And that's why when somebody says how to find the first customer, I never have a 10-second answer. But if you wanted a 10-second answer, it would be by talking to a lot of the right kind of people and just figuring it the heck out. What's your initial reaction?
Well, I guess my first question is, how do you not know who your customer is? If you're building a product, I mean, a lot of it is, the old mentality, if you build it, they will come. That doesn't really happen so much anymore. I mean, sometimes it does, don't get me wrong, but, you still have to do the basic market research. Is there a need for the product? What's the competitive landscape? Are people looking for it? At least at a bare minimum, to just get a sense of, is there even an appetite for this? And if there is, what is that appetite? And how does your recipe differ enough that somebody will want to pick you off of the buffet table, versus nobody's even hungry for this food, and figure out why? Is it because you're trying to serve, how can I say, you're trying to serve meat to a vegetarian and it's just not going to fly?
Yeah.
So there's still some basic fundamental things to try and figure out, what do I think that first customer would even look like, before you can even start to ask people that you think look like them.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And I have two reactions to that. So maybe I don't completely agree. Let's debate a little bit here.
Okay, I love a good debate.
Firstly, I believe that it's definitely beneficial to do some market research to understand your why behind why you're doing things. I wouldn't say write a business plan, but I would say do a lean canvas, which is a 30-minute business plan. So you've put some thoughts on paper. You've maybe drawn a few mock-ups of if it is a tech product, you're drawing a few pictures of what it might look like. If it's a restaurant, with a cool concept, you've drawn a floor plan, like you've thought it out. But hey, if I had to choose, if from an investor's point of view, if I was to invest in a startup and you had two startups, one spent 2 days talking to as many people as they could, and one spent 2 days doing market research on the internet, I honestly would likely put my money in the one that talked to people versus did the research if I had to pick one. But I think that you should do both. I think there's a minimum level. I just see more entrepreneurs get stuck at the, oh, I need to talk to people for validation, more so than they get stuck from the Google search side of things.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
And it's more like, how do you know who to talk to?
Mm.
So, right. So you still have to have some general idea what path you're going. Are you going east, west, north, or south? Like, let's just put a general idea of, am I talking to business people? Am I talking to consumers? Am I talking to technical buyers? Am I talking to business buyers? Get the very big brush strokes of who you plan to help. And then, yes, absolutely have those conversations with those people and say, look, I think I can help you. And if if you say that to 10 people and after 10 conversations, it's like, I'm not sure, then maybe you need to go back and figure out, maybe I haven't quite picked the right one. And I agree with you. It's a blend. You absolutely have to have the conversations, but you still have to have them with the right people.
Yeah, I agree. If you haven't put thought into who you're targeting, who you believe your ideal customer profile is, your ICP, my favorite acronym. But I think that it can be dangerous at the same time, Joanne, because I've been victim of this too. You set your ICP, you have 10 conversations, they go mediocre because validation is never black and white. It's not cut and dry. It's not 10 people say they hate your product, so you pivot. It's like a few people are humming and hawing and they go on your leads list, but they're not a warm lead. And, they're contact us in 6 months kind of people. So I think that you need to hypothesize. The whole thing is a hypothesis. I think that this kind of person would like this product for these reasons, because I think this is their process. I think this is what keeps them up at night. And then when you talk to them, if you hear something different, you have to be very open to it. And I think you need to be open to also going after people that were never on your radar, because I made this mistake of just not being open enough. If you haven't gotten traction, you shouldn't even consider closing off and identifying this is my ICP. This is not. I like what you said. It's like, am I going north, south, west, or east? But I'm not saying that I'm going northwest at 22 knots. And, I know I'm going this way and not that way, right?
Going toward the mountains or the water.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Or depending on where you live, of course, right? So yeah, no, I agree. And the one good thing about the time that we're living in right now is we really have permission to fail. We have permission to get it wrong. We have permission to screw up, because nobody knows what's happening.
Right.
But the opportunity lies in learning from whatever it is you're doing. So you're either going to try something and it's going to work and you're going to go, great, this worked, and I'm going to keep going down the same path, because if it works, you keep doing it.
Yeah.
Or it didn't work, and hopefully you don't go down that same path, because that's the definition of insanity. So if it didn't work, great, I learned something. So now instead of this way, I'm going to go a little bit off and see where it goes. And I'm just going to keep trying and tweaking and testing until I can hammer in on where is that, what I call the quickest time to money. So how can I pinpoint what that quickest time to money looks like for me, whether you're a new company or an established business, because everything is upside down. So many companies are struggling with, events companies, for example, they're completely turned upside down. So they have to completely figure out how are they going to move forward and who can they help next. They're going to start by looking at their customer base. They're going to start by looking at who they've already helped. But now they're like, okay, well, we're going to virtual events. What does that look like? What does that mean for the people who are an exhibitor? They know how to exhibit in a 3D live format. They have no clue how to deal with a virtual thing.
Yeah.
The opportunities are huge, to your point, if you are open to trying new things, testing new messages and markets and people and solutions, and being prepared to learn from the mistakes and the successes and then move from there. I think that that's how businesses are going to get out of the muck, is really trying quick hit little ways of targeting new messages, new people, new solutions. They can keep doing what they were doing that was working and is working, but if you're trying to tap into new money, new revenue streams, we're coming up to the end of the quarter, you know, what's that going to look like? How are people going to close off the year? They're looking for a couple of really quick hits. That's how they have to do it. In what do you think?
Yeah, I know you do a lot of work in messaging, you know, like who you help, how you help, and why it matters. And I want to touch on that and get your feedback off of my feedback here. And it's
Sure.
that I'm working a lot with entrepreneurs and early stage companies. And a lot of when I think about innovating, it's like innovating with a new offering, a new solution, or it's innovating with a new product. Or perhaps it's just innovating with an existing product with a new feature that sucks in a new ICP that really adds value to them, that's particularly relevant in 2020 during a global pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard from my podcasting experience, having a lot of chats with a lot of smart minds, is that one of the easiest things that you can pivot is the message, because it's, you know, and I wouldn't actually say it's easier. It's arguably more difficult, but it's easier from the sense that like you can just change the way you say something. You could change the emphasis. You don't need to change the product. You can just change the message, because it seems like it's more difficult to sell vitamins right now as opposed to painkillers, right? It's the need versus want idea. Right now, it's like, it's not how do I thrive? It's like, how do I survive?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, ooh, what's going to make me healthier? It's like, I'm feeling some freaking pain right now. And it's like, I feel like the true opportunity is to like position things that are relevant to a buyer today, not 6 months ago, right?
Right. And 6 months from now, we won't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
So we really are in a 3 to 6 month cycle right now. At any given time, every single company is in that position. Because look at what we've been through in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
How in the world can we predict the next 6? We have no idea. So to your point, so this is where I may agree to disagree a little bit with you too. So yes, I think it is very difficult to change your messaging depending on how entrenched your brand is and how tied it is to your brand. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have messaging that is reflective of the different people you're speaking with. It's very different. So I'll use the example of a resume. Okay? You have a resume and you're applying for 10 different jobs. Your cover letter will not be the same for each of those 10 jobs. It shouldn't be. And at most people, whether you agree with marketing, sales, whatever generation, they know you customize your cover letter to reflect what they're looking for. The rule of thumb today now is saying you have to tailor your entire resume as well, which to me, I'm very grateful I don't have to do that. But there's another school that's saying even your resume should be tailored. And I can understand why, depending on where you fit. It's the same thing when you're positioning a solution. Depending on the need that you are, or the pain that you are solving, you're going to have to tell the same story differently, whether it's to a technical buyer, a business buyer, somebody who's researching, somebody who's doing a cost benefits analysis. They're going to be looking for different things for the same product. So your core message will be your standard message, but how you help all these individual people or what it means to this department or this group or this segment will change. That's the hardest part. When I started doing trade shows and events well, I shouldn't say started, but the big tech shows in the 80s, 90s, the early 90s, way back in the day. I'll never forget being on the trade show floor, and we had everything ready to go. By the end of day one, the story had already changed 3 times of what the story was, based on the conversations, because you have conversations with these people, and as soon as their eyes light up, you realize, ooh, this captured their attention, right? That aha moment. So this is the piece I'm going to now articulate more frequently. So you hone in, and by the end of the show, you have got that message nailed, and then you come back, and now you have a year's worth of marketing until the next event. That's how it was, because the event was what helped you solidify and position if you were launching a product, the best way to tell the story. That's honestly how we did it. There was no internet.
Yeah.
I know it's hard for people to understand. Like, there was no internet. You had face-to-face conversations, you pitched it, and you either fell flat on your face or your booth was jam-packed. And if your booth was jam-packed, it meant you were telling a story that resonated with a whole bunch of people, or you were giving away a car, like one or the other, you know.
Yeah, that's and I'm just thinking, like, how do you measure the ROI of that, right? Like, some of these events, you're just going there and you're getting marketing material and you're revamping your message. Like, this is why I think it's so important. You know, this is why I said if I had to choose, I would choose the conversations over the research, because you have the conversations. And again, I'm thinking of an early stage business that's still figuring out, it's got more unknowns than knowns. Let's put it that way. But in these situations, like when you're doing your market research, how the hell do you know what to research? Like, what is sometimes you have deep domain knowledge, but sometimes you're not even sure what phrase to type into Google, what event to go to, you don't know what problem you're solving until you ask a customer, or they just tell you. I love asking, but people often just tell you. They'll just tell you, like, oh, like they'll hear my pitch, and my pitch will be shitty. And then they'll be like, oh, so you're basically doing this for that. And it's like, holy smokes, like let me jot that down, because I can now use that on the next 99 people I talk to, right? And then lo and behold, that becomes part of my website copy and my sales brochure. And I talk to the next customer on the next call, and it clicks with, him or her, 5 or 10 minutes sooner. In an attention economy, I'll take those minutes as a huge difference. So I think that being able to improve your message through conversation and learning, again, just being open to the idea that my message is the best message that I know of today, that represents the customer, because that's all you're trying to do, right? You do not write a message for your benefit or your company's benefit. You write it for the benefit of those that you're serving, and how they talk about it is the best way.
That's right. But to your point, having those conversations is research.
Agreed.
It's just not digital research. It's in-person research. And I think the biggest mistake that most companies make is not talking to their customers. The most valuable advice that was being given the first few weeks of the pandemic was for everybody to just pick up the phone and call their customers and see how they were doing. You weren't selling to them, you were just calling. And for many, they hadn't spoken to these customers in years. They were only focused on the ones that really brought in the money, or maybe that were just, but if it was residual, they never really paid much attention. So it was an opportunity to go back in. I'm recommending that they do it again now, because you're 6 months in now. Check in. Hey, we had this conversation. We're 6 months in. I'm going to ask you this question right now. I'm asking you, Luc. How have business conversations changed over the last 2 weeks? So you tell me, how have business conversations changed for you over the last 2 weeks?
I don't think I'm going to have a great answer to that.
Everybody says that, but you'd be surprised.
Yeah, that's why I really want to give you something here. I would say that in the context of travel, it seems like travel affects a lot. I would say it affects almost every industry and every circumstance. Are you attending a trade show? Is the trade show even happening? I'm involved in something that requires in-person training, and that option is not super viable. So we're having to pivot and rethink how we do some particular form of training in our business. So I would say that it's sort of like a reassess many things on a almost like a weekly or bi-weekly basis, right? I can't say there's been a complete flip in a few weeks, but you're right. What might be a no-go right now because of some uncertainty in the economy might become a strong go in a few weeks, or vice versa. It might be we're planning on doing this, but maybe we have phase 2 of our lockdown be confirmed here, and then you can't do things. So I still don't love how I answered that, but you know what I will say is that I think asking people like not how are you, but like asking how are you doing this day or this week or this month, I think is much more relevant than it ever was before. And the insight of how they answer that. If you're doing a follow-up call to a prospect you talked to 3 months ago that said COVID, can't call me later.
Yep.
The first thing you should be saying is like, how's it going this month? Like, this is what I'm experiencing. How is it going for you? And kind of working off that. It depends on the industry. It depends on the sector. But I think that's why you ask.
Yeah. And it's simple to, you can ask the same question too. Like there's no harm in asking the same question you asked 6 months ago and just saying, you know, here's what it was 6 months ago. You know, your sales team was struggling. How are they doing? What department is struggling now?
Yeah.
Where, you know, who in your company needs help? These are all the ways you can ask without selling. And you're getting them to and again, you're not talking about them because people don't necessarily want to talk about themselves, but more people will, what I've learned is if you think you're helping somebody, you will be a lot more open to communicate than if you think you're helping yourself.
Agreed.
So if you ask, who in your company is struggling right now? Who needs help right now in your company? Then chances are, if you're having the conversations with the business owners or whoever it is, they'll say, oh, you know what? Our finance team is really, really struggling because of X, or our sales team is really, really finding it hard because they can't book face-to-face meetings. It opens up the door to have those types of conversations. And if you know your product well enough, which you should, whether you're a startup or not, you should be able to start connecting the dots in your head of, okay, I'm hearing this problem. I think I can pigeonhole my solution to somehow help them. And if I can't, I'm going to see how I can help them anyways.
Yeah, agreed.
Right?
And it might be something small and creative. It might be related to how you spread out the payments. It might be something that you can do, like what we've done. And I have a few things going on right now, but what I'm doing with one of the hats that I'm wearing with a particular enterprise project, we are proposing a phase of work for free in exchange for the marketing communication benefit that might come from that project, right? So I think that's like, I think a lot of good salespeople learn that. It's just like when money is the only thing on the table, you're kind of limited. When you have more options, it becomes easier to see how you add value because it's an exchange of value, right? Like a salesperson, they should look at themselves as like, I'm helping these people.
Yes.
They're lucky to have my help. I need to ask for compensation because everybody wants my help and my help is worth this much. But I think it's just a good time to think outside the box of like how you can help and how you're compensated for that help, and just the different ways that you can help them and they can help you at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm. And people are willing to do that. I mean, like when you help, I don't know any other way to say it than when you help somebody, it's reciprocated. That's how the relationship is forged, and you remember somebody who helped you, and you're especially going to remember when you helped somebody else. So going for what you were saying about the give stuff away, but charge for whatever the other thing is. I mean, sure. I always have these conversations. Have you ever heard the razors and razor blade analogy? We talked about that before.
I might know it, but please say it.
Okay. So this is something I learned from one of my very first managers. If you go to you're in Canada, so you go to Shoppers Drug Mart, and if you're in the States, you go to a CVS or something like that, and you go to buy a razor. They're all up there. You can pick them up the pegboard. They're going to be $20, $15, $18, whatever it is, right?
Sure.
When you go to buy the razor blades to refill, they're locked behind a case, and they start at usually $40 or $50.
Yeah.
Right? You get the razor blade, you get the razor for free. You get the thing you are actually using. You're buying either for the fancy handle or for whatever you're buying that razor. It's the blades that you're going to be paying for at least a year before you're ready to chuck the razor, depending on whatever it is that you've purchased.
It's the printer and ink cartridge example too, right?
Yes. Yes. So yes, you give away, there has to be a balance. It's the same thing going to a website. What content requires a form? What content doesn't? What is valuable enough that's going to get me to actually give up my name, and let alone my real email address as opposed to my throwaway email address that I use for newsletters and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I'm a marketing person, so I'm one of those crazy people that signs up for everything just so I can just cherry pick subject lines and cherry pick calls to action. It's like, ooh, I like the way they did that. I'm like, come on, this is how we do it. I like this. Oh, this sucks. This goes in the I'm never going to do this again pile, and remind myself never to do it this way, versus, ooh, this was an awesome subject line. I really wanted to click on it. I'm gonna put that in the file. I'm not gonna use that word. That really dates me. I was about to say file facts. You know where that came from.
Yeah, what? We'll
a file of facts. Forget it. File of facts. Anyways, but that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. There's such an opportunity here to figure out how to best help people. And I really think like the number one skill I see in all this is empathy. Like I really think number one skill in the world is empathy. And everybody gives me shit for saying it's a soft skill, and I'm starting to give myself shit, because like soft skills are really skills, because if you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes, and you can really, the better you can do that, the better you'll be able to help them and solve their problems, right? Like the only way to have that is actually to have been in their shoes. That helps, right? Like if I'm selling robots to farmers in my past life, it's like, well, if I was a farmer, it helps. If I've worked with robots, it helps. But like to really ask questions and go beyond asking questions, I like to actually watch people when they do things. So if somebody says, oh, our sales department's having a hard time, like, let's see what your sales department does. Let me bird over the shoulder, watch your sales team go through a day. And then I'm probably going to know how to help. And then I'll know how to position it in the right way. I just think that I see empathy executed on so poorly right now by people that should understand it, that don't. And this ties back to the message. This ties back to, what to say to, suck people in at your trade show booth, how to give that story that resonates. To me, it all comes down to messaging. It's like you need to be a combination of like prepared and scripted, but you also need to be willing to go way off script, way off course, just to see what people want and need, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure. So what's the most interesting type of company that you've worked for that you've had to help get their first customer?
Well, I will share my most recent, my last first customer, because it was recent and my memory is like a goldfish. But also because there's a few stories that are entrenched within it that are like building blocks of who I am as a person. Because business is never just business with me, and maybe this story will help explain it. I reached out to here. I'll sort of, if it's okay with you, I'll quickly highlight what my process was for how I did it, but I'll also share like what I think where the golden nugget was, the takeaway, and I'll try to do that swiftly. So what I did, I was working with two technical founders who had a strong belief of who we served and how we helped. They believed all this stuff. And instead of asking them, I went directly, I said, well, who do we know well? Who can actually give us some advice? And I spent a few hours talking with a few, let's call it advisors, a few close people to us, to hear directly from the horse's mouth what we do, why we do it, why it matters, why this person thought our product was good. And I literally asked these things. I was like, if you were us, like, where do I need to go to find more Joannes? I literally asked that question. Like, I like you, Joanne. How do I find more Joannes? Where do you hang out? And they said, oh, we go to this event in California. And I was like, okay, what event is that called? Okay, cool. And what kind of people are there? Okay, cool. And what would you try to do if you were us and you went there? Like, you ask a lot of questions. And I took all this information, and then after that conversation, I said, okay, I think this is our ideal customer profile. I think this is the features we should offer. I had a few different opinions than the original business founders. I was brought in as as a chief business officer. And then I reached out, I scraped emails from the internet. I reached out to about 200 people that I believed were in the ICP. The ICP was geographically based as well as a bunch of other criteria. And I reached out to them and I said my script, which was personalized for every single person, answering some basic questions like, why am I contacting you specifically? Making sure they know that I looked at their website, that I know something interesting about their business that proves that I care. I told them what my ask was, and it was not for a sale. It was, I need some advice. Because I knew that if I ask for advice, I'm going to figure out if they want it anyways. So might as well ask for advice.
Sure. And
I did that very personably, and I sent a follow-up like a month later to those who didn't respond. And the follow-up, by the way, wasn't, hey, I just following up. It was like with something actionable. It was like, hey, this is like the exciting thing that we've done since the last time I tried to reach out. Anyways, I got a really good response rate, like north of 10%.
Nice.
I had phone calls with, I think, somewhere between 7 and 8% of all my cold leads. And on the phone calls, I really executed the process that I had learned from before. And maybe one of my favorite things, now I'm going to highlight how I got the actual first customer. I was on the phone and this person said no. And we were 45 minutes deep into the conversation, deep enough that I felt there's rapport where I can ask why. So in a tactful way, but honestly straight up, I asked like what's the reason here you said no? And he clearly articulated 3 reasons, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. And I said to him, I said, hypothetically, if we could fix all 3 of these things, would you buy? And he said, yes. And we were actually able to make all 3 of those things happen because his version of no, this wouldn't work. And what was in my head was totally, this can work.
For sure.
So I ended up flying out to this person's location. I ended up sleeping at their house, sleeping at the house of my prospective customer champion for a week. I spent the other week sleeping on the floor of a slaughterhouse that belonged to another prospective customer champion. And I was literally there. I guess I've given it away. It's the agriculture industry. But I was literally there in the flesh with my customer champion, learning everything that they do, everything that they have, meeting his wife, meeting his mother, meeting his stepfather. And I got to know him, not just like what are his pains, what's his process, but I got to know him as a human to the point where I got so much benefit from like, you know, beyond the what messaging should I use, but like he would tell me who are my competitors and who else has called him. He would tell me exactly who I need to talk to sell number 2 and number 3 to. It was just like the right customer champion, and I had a deep enough relationship where I got all the rest of the benefits. So this story really inspired me. And although I'm not at the company anymore, I just got a few weeks ago is my birthday. I get a happy birthday text message from his stepfather. I get a happy birthday message from him. It's like, it's a relationship that stems beyond business. And I believe that if every company treated some segment of their customer champions as absolute friends first and clients, customers second, it would be a lot easier to build a successful company because A, I had a ton of fun with this person, and B, the value that I extracted and the value I could offer him because I knew everything that was important to him was just a synergy that I wish more people experienced.
I think that's amazing. And it's funny because as you're talking, first of all, I'm like getting goosebumps as you're talking. but it's also in many ways, because the world has been forced to stop and find new ways to communicate. And we've all been, first of all, I've never spent so much time in front of a video camera as I have in the last 6 months. The first time I got a call on like WhatsApp of somebody wanting to do like a video call, I was like, no. And I wouldn't do it. And then finally I was like, okay, I got to get over myself because it is what it is. And that's sort of when I started and I shot a video and it somehow has turned into this. But I've made some really strong, deep friendships with people around the world that I might never have had more than maybe an email, maybe a phone conversation, but it certainly wouldn't be face-to-face or as close to this as possible. It wouldn't be where I'm actually looking at the person and seeing the emotion in their eyes and sort of, you know, it's not the same as in person, but it's as close as we're going to get right now.
Yeah.
And the fact that we could have this type of a conversation and communication with anyone at any time around the world just takes so many shackles off and gives us that opportunity to get to know people a little bit better.
Well, if it's okay, I'd love to ask you, Joanne, so there's a lot of benefits to making friends.
Yes.
So I don't want to make it seem like the ROI is the main focus, but I want to ask that question specifically so people can understand. And I also don't want to lead you more than I have. Have you seen financial benefit for yourself from your approach to making friends first on the internet?
Absolutely. I said it.
You said it.
There's no doubt in my mind that all of the hours and sweat and learning and relearning that I have done and truly made a conscious effort to invest my time learning how to do this. And I'm not saying I'm the master. I'm not saying I'm far from the best of the best, but I have learned, and I'm kind of proud of myself of what I have managed to accomplish. But absolutely, the conversations are turning into requests for proposals. They are turning into business, and it might not be the same type of business I was looking at 6 months ago.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is definitely the type of business that is going to be helping people for the next 6 months. So I can't ask more than that. And there's just no way I would be where I am today had I not started to embrace this. Well, I mean, I've been doing this long before COVID, but really just dive right in and embrace the ability to have these types of conversations and get on the Zoom groups and get into the LinkedIn groups and get into some of those chats. And, you know, by hook or by crook, if they tell me to do this, I'm doing it. I'm going to see if it works. I'm going to learn from what the people who know what they're doing are doing. If it works for me, I'm going to keep doing it. If I'm not comfortable with it, I'm not going to do it just because somebody else is doing it. You know, somebody like Gary Vee might be very successful at doing X, or Shy Rowbottom, like she's very successful. I'm not those people. I'm not trying to be those people. But if I can learn some of the ways that they have become successful, and not only use them for myself, but use them to help the people that I help. So I like to call myself my own guinea pig. I'll test stuff out, test cameras. I know you've seen, I've got crappy video, you know, glaring lights everywhere. It's like, whatever. If I waited for it to be perfect, I just never would have done it. So I just had to do it and learn. And it's like, all right, sorry guys, I know the video's crap, but at least there's something out here. And then I learn. And then I can share that with the folks who I'm helping and say, look, now I know what here. I mean, I've been saying this for months. I've got a whole library of content that I encourage people to borrow and use and share. And, you know, if you're a printer, for example, and you're trying to show the value of direct mail, here are the articles that prove it. If you're a customer and you're trying to generate, your business and you're trying to generate leads and you're thinking of a new way, direct mail might be the answer. Here's why. Two very different audiences, same content.
Yeah.
But then what? So here's all this free content, but how do you use it? Well, I can help you take that free content and use it to drive awareness and engagement in business.
Yeah. There's like 65 reasons to network on the internet, to create content on the internet, to build your personal brand on the internet. Like my job at Deep Dive Technology Group, I'm working with my Misha. I'm working with my mentor, Misha. Misha and I have been friends for 7 years now. And he's been mentoring me through my previous startups. He tried to hire me 6-7 years ago. I had to go and do my own startup shit at that time. All good. He said, eventually we're going to do business together. And I believed him. And then it finally happened. But I'm saying this because how did it happen is because I went out on a limb to learn something new that I thought was A, skillfully relevant, and B, that I would enjoy. And that is podcasting and creating content, video content particularly. And then he and I talked, and he saw what I was doing and how I was doing it and my passion for doing it. And it's me making my podcast that was actually the trigger that set up this job opportunity right now that didn't work out 6 or 7 years ago. So it's like, do you want to say like, okay, like, is there benefits of creating content? Is there benefits of podcasting? I don't know. It was the single thing that got me my last job. So like, I think there's just endless amounts of benefit. And if you look at it differently, if you're assuming you're doing one a week, that's 52 extra conversations you have in a year where you become top of mind with people. When I know that somebody might need what Joanne has to offer, it's a friendly introduction. It's a friendly conversation. Maybe Joanne can help.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's it. That's it. That's all. That's like, how can we help? Right? So Luc, it's been awesome. We have to do this again without electrical failures and internet.
Yeah, just I have to quickly summarize. Number one,
Yes.
your hair is off the charts.
Oh, thank you.
And number two, we definitely have to do this again. But I'm proud that I got one F-bomb out of you. That's
only one.
That's real success to me. I was like, if Joanne didn't say fuck in this interview, then I would feel horrible. So thank you very much for letting one fly. For the
only one. Sorry?
For the benefit of the podcast.
Absolutely. So I cannot leave you without saying one word. And I want to see what your reaction is. What do you think? Do you have any idea what the word's going to be?
I'm scared because everyone's looking at my face right now.
Yeah. Pineapple?
I'm thinking of the LinkedIn emoji because you hardly ever say anything on LinkedIn without a pineapple. And I think that's a good branding technique too. I think you're aware of it. It's awesome.
I try. Luc, if people want to get in touch with you, people want to connect with you, people want to learn from you, what is the best way?
If you know how to spell my name, then you will look for me on LinkedIn. I will respond to every single message on LinkedIn other than the cryptocurrency scams. And I would love to have any conversation about, honestly, just providing some free advice on how the hell do you find your first customer, build your first product. I have a lot of fun having these conversations, and I hope that I get to have more conversations on the intersection of all this and in the world of business with you, Joanne. So thanks a lot for having me on.
Thank you so much, Luc. This has been fun. Yeah, and Dan, definitely. What time is it? You're like, what, 2 or 3 hours behind me?
It's 4 p.m. You're 5 p.m.,
I'm
right?
at 5. Oh, so it's only an hour. Why did I think it was more? What's the weather like over in Winnipeg? You're in Winnipeg, right?
It's almost winter. Can I answer it that way?
Yeah. It was, can I tell you, yesterday morning, I took the dog for a walk. It was 4 degrees. And this morning it was 16.
Yeah, I'm heading out to the cottage for the last weekend of the year this weekend. And it's like, you got to get the heater in the bedroom, turned on high.
With the window open though.
I don't want to party like that, Joanne. That's we don't take that advice, everyone. That's got to be censored. That's blasphemy.
Nice shader. I know. I'm a nice shader. Red. Raid. Kills bugs dead. All right. Enjoy. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your weekend up north. Congratulations on the move. Belated happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Thank you kindly. And I'm looking forward to, yes, we'll have another conversation soon. Keep killing it. Keep helping.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.